Hello there, Mark Hepp with CampgroundViews.com. The following video you're about to watch is a special video. It's a follow-up to the interview performed of Erin and Dan from In-Town Campground. That video has actually received some of the highest views we've ever posted, and it's their story of how they opened In-Town Campground and worked through developing that. It is now several years later, and I had the chance to meet up with them at their property as we were preparing one of the new campground virtual tours for that location. I said, hey, let's jump on, let's just grab a phone and do an interview. We actually didn't plan it. We just stuck a phone down. So I will apologize when I reviewed the footage. Erin is further away from the phone, so her voice is softer. So I do apologize about that. You may have to adjust your volume as you're listening to it. That wasn't on purpose. We just didn't even think about it. We just stuck a phone down and started recording a conversation. In this conversation, though, if you've seen the previous interview, this is further down the line. So they're actually sharing their story of how they've operated this park. So far, it's been a huge success for them, both personally and professionally, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about that. So without further ado, here's that interview. It is now 5 years later. We're all still alive. We're wiser, or whatever. Right. But this is a follow-up. So that was by far the most, I think it's got like 50,000 views or something like that. Some crazy amount. And as you both know, you guys actually get phone calls from people. And so I was on site here. We're doing the new virtual tours of the campground. I said, you know, we should do a follow-up because that interviews, there's been some pot shots thrown at Dan and follow-ups from Erin because, you know, the number one comment, the first comment was, Dan didn't let Erin talk. And so, Erin, there's a reason why you weren't that talkative in that episode. So why did Dan talk too much for you?
I don't think he talked too much. We're a good partnership.
Exactly. So that's the first lesson. Dan and Erin get along. They're an amazing couple. If you ever have the opportunity to watch them work, they're really cool. So you guys have been running this park now for how long?
It'll be 6 years in July.
Mm-hmm. 6 years.
This, and I guess I should say, this is In-Town Campground in Nevada City, California. And a lot of folks that watch the other video, they watch it because they're looking for inspiration. They wanted to build their own RV parks, their own, and they listen to your story. And I know it's been very influential for a lot of people because the issues that you had to work through to build your park. Now we're 6 years in, and you're not so much in the headaches of building it, but you've been operating a park for 6 years. So taking the last 6 years, what would you say are the number one lessons you've learned about operating a park? Erin.
I mean, staffing is always going to be a challenge. I think that we've learned, we've certainly improved, we've done coaching, we've revisited things, we've reorganized things, but it is still a constant learning opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my lesson, so we split our division of labor, pretty well. Mm-hmm. So, the last interview was me talking about the building because that's a lot of what I do. And I do a lot of the outside stuff here, and Erin does most of the business management stuff. So things like staffing and, training, that falls really on her plate. And it's a big thing every year because we're a seasonal business. The things that I deal with, for example, we've talked about it just this trip, are like facility stuff like tree maintenance. Like I had no idea how much work is involved in managing a forest.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to grab this. So we're filming on Erin's phone because I didn't actually bring a camera to do this. So go ahead and keep talking, Dan. And we'll. So when he talks about trees, let's just look at this tree that we're sitting under right here.
Yeah. So that's we call that the mother tree. It's a giant sugar pine, probably one of the biggest, certainly heaviest tree that we have here on site. And anyway, it's probably like 100 years old, and it's beautiful, but with wind and snow and all the other things.
That's a piece of a branch, right?
That's a branch. That's
a
not a tree trunk. That's just a branch.
Yeah, so here's my hand. That's the branch. So just give you an idea of size. So anyways, when he mentions trees, that's what he's talking about there.
So yeah, I guess for me, it's just that kind of stuff, and I'm sure you've got lots of other things that you've learned over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think we went into the campground business not knowing how it would be to run a campground, even though we had lots of experience running a motel. So we came from it with a very hospitality minded, but there's, pieces of camping industry that are different, and we feel like we've rolled with the punches.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting just to see the industry evolve. And I remember I don't know if I talked about this last time, but the very first guest we had was a 35 foot fifth wheel. It came in, and I think you and I were standing there waiting for them, and I was terrified. I saw that thing roll in, and I was like, holy cow, what are we going to do? And, you know, like we had to cut branches to get them in. I had to cut a tree down to get them out. It was insane. So, you know, I that's my benchmark. We don't have that anymore. So that's really awesome.
Well, you know, so it's since that interview was the last time I was at your property. So being here, I've noticed, and obviously we can't do, this was last minute just doing this interview, but if you walk around the property, I was pointing it out as we were walking around, I'm like, look at those logs, look at the way you've improved the property. And it sounds like similar to your first experience, as people have used the property, you've seen places to improve it. So folks who are watching this, who are thinking about either buying a park or building a park, what type of processes do you have in place to kind of take customer feedback and then adjust the way you're running things?
So it's kind of two parts. Like I have kind of the things that I observe and see and talk to people when I'm out doing my rounds. And then, you know, Erin, of course, she'll do rounds with me, just chatting with campers, but also she's in the office a lot. So she'll hear things in a slightly different way. And, you know, we're very collaborative. So we talk with our staff all the time about what's working, what's not working. And, I mean, I'm not too proud to say this sucks. Let's do something else. And we've got a few examples where we've tried multiple times to address problems, you know, like the flow of traffic of people through sites or around sites. And I don't know, you just got to keep trying.
So then this question goes to Erin. So as part of dealing with customers, or not dealing with it, that may sound negative, but in drawing in customers, it takes marketing, and that's where you've really come into play. And if you haven't seen an in-town campground, you probably have seen it. Like you've done a really good job of getting this park everywhere, and that's because of the unique glamping tents and obviously the unique setting of the park. So can you talk a little bit about that marketing piece? What did you put into play early on, maybe a few years ago, and what are you doing now?
Well, I think when we first met you, one of the key pieces to getting the word out about our campground, in addition to having a really strong visual storytelling, lots of great photos, hired a publicist. Like I can be the first to admit that I don't know all the things I don't have those connections. So that was super useful. And then having a lot of connections within our community was good to build relationships with other business owners and consumers. But I think that I've had long view consistently, and so I will do the work and understand that I might not get instant gratification now, but like the article that we got written up in 3 days ago is from a relationship from 5 years ago. And so it's that idea that you are constantly building upon it, and that you have to put the work in, and it may pay off in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. That would be my recommendation, to sort of think about it on a 12-month, 24-month, 36-month schedule.
Yeah, and if you go to like intowncampground.com, you'll see some of the visuals from the park. It's a very visually appealing park. It's just, you see any angle of this location says campground outdoors, amazing. And we were having a conversation yesterday about those visuals and how often you're having to change them as you improve the park, and you're replacing glamping tents, like upgrading those glamping tents. So as part of that marketing strategy, what do you do is it just like on the fly, hey, we need new photos, or, what are you doing there?
Well, I gave you the example of we upgraded our reservation system, and then I had 25 photos versus 5 photos to tell the same story. So I had to give myself the time to get the quantity of the photos. So it's just chipping away at it slowly. So I feel like that's something where it's not one and done and over. It's constant. And then I go, oh no, now I have like 500 photos that I got to sort through. So I try to okay, I'll do these 10, I'll do these 30.
I'm laughing because the reason it's constant, well, one, it's important to always be fresh, but I'm always coming up with a new idea too. So like the glamping tents should be like, now I got a photo of them. I'm like, yes. But just, I just want to say what's really great about our partnership, and Erin is an amazing visual storyteller. So people, when they come here, I don't know if you hear it, Erin, but I hear it all the time, that like, I know what I'm getting. I can see myself being there. And that's because she, captures it. She's got an eye for it, and it's great. And I think, going back to your first question about what did we learn, I've learned from her that if you can help people visualize the experience, they're more apt to come here. So, that's true of all businesses, I guess, but in the camping business, every campground's totally different. And so, you know, the people that have called us asking about that first video, oh, what would you do and how do you do it? It's like, you got to really, I feel like, you know, lure people in with what it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a series of amenities, and it's an experience.
And
right?
that leads into like the next question. So what you're not seeing here is behind the scenes during COVID. Erin and I did a lot of talking because this park is in California. A large portion of the clientele comes from the Bay Area. It was an area that was significantly impacted by COVID restrictions and lockdowns and those type of things. And I'm not getting into the politics of that, but the factual basis of operating a business in that environment and the fact that you're still here today.
Mm-hmm.
So without getting into politics, what did you guys do operationally? Because any business is going to have, in anybody's life, whether you have a business or not, you're going to hit hard times and difficult challenges. What did you do, either individually or as a couple, to get your business and yourselves through that time?
I still think Longview answers same answer, different question. Like we had to keep thinking further along and not what we want today, what we want tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, there were times, you know, in March, I think it was March of 2020, you know, when we had to get the staff together and be like, we have to close and we don't know when or if we're going to be able to open again. And I mean, those are hard conversations to have with people who you really care about. And, you know, in terms of how we dealt with it as a couple, you know, we had the phone on our living room floor answering calls, you know, canceling people basically. And I just tried to provide moral support because she was really doing the most of it. And it was hard. A lot of them were friendly, but some of them were really mean. And it was a really stressful time for everybody. You know, the uncertainty was just unbelievable. So I think, how did we cope as a business? Because, you know, we care about each other and we supported each other, and we knew that we would get through this only if we worked together, you know. And then there's the nuts and bolts of how we actually operated, which was the easy part. Once we were able to open, kind of didn't matter. We were going to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now we're through COVID, or it's coming out the backside, and then the next thing that happened to the industry, and you may, if a lot of folks, that's where this video, the original video, really took off, is because afterwards a lot of people wanted to go buy campgrounds because it's like, hey, it's kind of a normal industry right now, and they really wanted to get into it.
Right.
But post-COVID, the camping industry, if you're not familiar, exploded. Like everybody bought RVs, went camping, went outdoors. We are here now. What is it? It's April 10th. That's when we're filming this right now. And I'm looking around here. We've got a whole bunch of guests in the campground right now, and that's not a normal thing in Nevada City. It's usually around now where it starts to pick up, but not like this. So COVID happens, and then people escape outdoors. What was 2021 like for your business here?
It was busy.
Yeah, I mean, the business has grown 20+% every year, maybe even more. There's different kinds of campers, so that's a big thing across the industry. People have really noticed this, that you know, 2020 was really interesting. A lot of first-time campers, a lot of people who really were first-time outdoors people. So there was a lot of education that went on, and you know, we talked a lot about how we would do our systems, because, you know, how do you deal with somebody who doesn't really know what a picnic table is, or, you know, that acorns come out of oak trees, or, you know, whatever. I mean, those are all real examples. You know, but be sympathetic too, because our whole mission statement is to make getting outside easy for people. And so you have to expect to some degree that there's going to be people, if it's easy, that have never done it. And that's awesome. But there's an education component to it. And I mean, what do you think you've done to like help educate people?
I mean, I think we just continue to give best practices. We do a lot of education, public service announcements for our community, you know, best practices on going to the river. I'm constantly telling people about poison oak, so it's like non-COVID related, non-camping related. So I think it's just more of the same. I think 2021, we just worked a lot. So I think that the wildfires and the smoke and the staffing issues and the stresses and the uncertainty, they were just a little more taxing than I think if we'd had more staff and more certainty.
Yeah, and wildfire has been an issue. So they're here in Nevada City. They weren't directly impacted by the fires in Tahoe, but they're nearby, and they're north of here. There's fires, and obviously fires are a threat. Again, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a
this
constant
area
threat,
clearly has
yeah.
not burned, right? So it's a constant threat, and you're just operating a business within it. So let's go next. One of the things that happened after that other video is you guys started getting phone calls, and you actually got people showing up at your park.
Yep.
So thinking back to those people who've arrived here, what questions did they have for you? What did they want to know? And maybe, well, remember they're operating a business, so don't just show up and, they're happy to see you, but they're operating a business. So
I feel like a lot of the questions have been fairly technical questions. Usually they get directed to me because they're about permitting and, how you dealt with the agencies, things like that. Or sometimes they're like, hey, I've got this great idea, and then I have to kind of clue them in on some of that stuff. Those are the questions that I get. I know you've talked to lots of people that probably don't fit into that category because that's not really my wheelhouse when it goes more to the marketing and the social media, and she's doing outreach all the time with other owners, other interested people.
Yeah, I feel like we've done conversations with people who are just sort of in the, not really dreaming, but more like a little bit more serious. Like, okay, we're thinking about this a little bit more seriously, and we're interested by you guys, and can you give us some more information?
Yeah.
Go. So I'm serious about getting a campground. What do I do next?
I always tell people from like the planning, that side of it, where's your property and do you have the right zoning and entitlements to do it? I don't get into the business plan side.
That lesson one.
Yeah.
That's lesson one, because a lot of folks who are thinking about building a campground or buying it, or not really buying, but building a campground from scratch, they make that mistake. I already own the property. Well, what is it zoned?
Yeah.
And if it's not zoned appropriately, can you get it changed? And then like, well, how do I do that? Correct me if I'm wrong, walk into your planning commission or the public works office and say, hey, I want to change the zoning, and see their response to you.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, if their response is, that's never going to happen,
Yeah.
it's probably never going to happen realistically, or you're going to have to go through a whole lot. So would you agree with that?
I totally agree with it. And, I feel like I'm kind of always the naysayer, the Debbie Downer guy, because people come in and they have these like huge eyes with this amazing vision. They're like, we want to do something like this, or we want to do something up in the mountains. And I'm like, focus it, because, it's all just a dream unless you can get through some of the practical stuff. And that's where the hard yards are really earned, is, hours in front of the computer, talking to people and getting reports and specialists and all this other stuff that are necessary, for the project. But it also, you get a great project when you do it right.
Yeah. And that would be, take that as a serious lesson if you're considering building a park, is that if all of that stuff sounds overwhelming and tiresome, that's just the beginning. Right? Would you agree with that? That's just the beginning. And so really take a hard look at that. So let's assume, let's switch it a little bit. Let's assume that they're thinking about buying a park. That's actually the easy, if you're wanting to get in the industry, it's easier to buy than it is to build. Number one, because you already existing property. So this question will go to Erin. So I'm looking to buy a park. It's 60 sites. Husband and wife are going to live on site. It's the couple that's there. They've run it for 30 years. They don't do anything. I think I can turn it around. So you're taking over a property like that. What are the first few things you do?
Well, I would probably make sure they had online bookings, and make sure that their website and social media and their actual sites are well represented. So, like, obviously I would hope that the campground is up to the standards that they would want it. So let's say they did some improvements or practicals, then my first thing would be like, okay, it's not like the campground we did and stay out on a trip earlier where the RV site photo was vertical instead of horizontal in their booking engine. So like just those super simple things of like, if someone wants to book this site, do they have a clear representation of what they're doing, which ties really well into what you do.
I'm going to add on to that, because one thing she did really, really well when we built our park was actually get information out into the public before we even launched.
You did a good job of that, yes.
Right? So like people knew, and you got to tell the story about, I can't remember her name, but anyway, the gal who came, and she was like our first booker.
No, we told that story in the first video, so they can go back. But what I love about it is that their family, then she came when we first opened, she was pregnant. So now they have 2 kids, and they're coming back again this summer. So they don't live that far away, so they have been multiple times. And she sent a message, well, I'm thinking about this or this. What should I do? And I sent her a thing, well, tips for you is we're in the process of rebuilding Glamping 1020. If you have the choice, pick that one. I haven't updated anything. I haven't announced that because it wasn't done yet. And so she followed my advice and did what I suggested.
But I guess my point was that, you know, she sold the site before we even had a site. And now we've got this long-term regular customer that keeps coming back. So you're building a new park, or you buy the new park, and you know, have your vision, and even if you mock it up, like, sell your vision, because that's what people are going to buy. You know, they want to come and do it, and then, you know, you build it, right?
Yep.
But,
and so if you want to meet these two in person and really pick their brain, people did after that other video, they just showed up, like, at your park, or just
did,
called.
Yeah.
And so what I'd advise you is, you'll be at the glamping show next year, right?
I'll be at the glamping
There's
show
a glamping show. It's in October. It's in Aurora, Colorado. Go to the glampingshowusa.com. Get information on it. Dan will be there. Maybe Erin too. So you can actually pick their brains at those events. The other events you want to look at is, there's a National Association event. There's some state level events that you'll want to go to and actually really start getting your feet wet. This industry it's unique. Right now, as we're recording this, fuel prices have gone through the roof. In fact, I'm in California. It was I just paid $6.60 for a gallon of diesel right now. But this campground has campers in it. People are still camping. So there's a resiliency in this industry. So I know that there's people watching this that are still thinking, man, I want to get into it. It may be a good, interesting business to get into, which leads me into my next question. Knowing what you know now, 6 years later, what would you have told yourselves way back when you got this crazy idea?
I probably wouldn't have told myself anything, because I don't know if we would have done it. You know,
Yeah.
it's...
We talk about that. Like, if we knew what we know now, we might not have done it. So in some regards, like, ignorance is bliss. And I think that the learning curves have been good. I mean, I think about the things that we've changed and evolved and pivot. I mean, COVID is a great pivot. Like, okay, we're going to, you know, but we've been really consistent about what our values are and what our experiences, what we want them to be. And so I think that if you can set that vision to begin with as what you want, and then it's like a good guiding light. Like, you just stay on that path.
Well, and it gets you through the really hard times, because there's going to be hard times, you know, financially and, you know, emotionally, physically. And when you're grounded by a set of values, especially common values, you know, if you're doing it with a partner, then that really helps. I think, you know, we probably would have done it even still, but I think, you know, it's hard work. And I guess that's the thing that I want to, and I always convey to people, is like,
it ain't easy.
Don't get into this business. You know, if you want to make $1 gajillion, go, like we were saying, go to finance or work
I think
for
Bitcoin.
Google.
Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
this is not advice to buy Bitcoin, but
you can make a great living, and it's a lot of fun, but it's hard work, and but it's very satisfying. You know, people come in, and the first campers roll in for the season, and you know, how many people tell us, this place is amazing, I can't believe, you know, you built this place.
Yeah.
Like, who gets to say that at their job, right? Or gets to hear that regularly? So it's amazing. And those rewards are great, but it's hard.
it's hard.
Yeah, and I think you really want to do it. I think that we enjoy that we are hands-on business owners, and that's something that we knew we wanted to do. So I would certainly recommend, if someone wants to be a hands-off, that this might be a little bit more challenging to create something like this that we've done, because the people are connected to us and our story, and our staff it's all an extension of what we believe in, even if we're not actually physically here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's our kind of campground, right? We built a campground that we wanted to run. You can buy an RV park or build an RV park that doesn't have the same sort of thing. You know, it's a totally different business model, and that could work. You know, it kind of depends what your goals are, and, you know, you go with what works.
Yeah, you know, it's so I've been here 2 days, and we have had some long conversations and some deep conversations, and you know, one of the things about, you know, that 6 years of time, and everybody I think has gotten a perspective of time during these last 2 years, but 6 years of time, like your boys are now teenagers and getting ready. You know, you mentioned 2 years, one of them is going to be going off to college, right? So
Less than.
Yeah.
one of
less than.
one of the perspectives that you have to take into whatever you're doing is that life is short,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Life's short. So, I mean, I asked kind of a leading kind of mean question there about what would you tell yourselves of old. You know, you can't go back and change what you've done. You've already done what you've created the future that you wanted to create for yourselves. Now, given that, any regrets?
We're not very good about getting days off. So I think if we could go
Yeah.
back and find a staffing model that would give us a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we didn't anticipate kind of two things. One, that the business would grow the way that it did, and then be like supercharged by the whole COVID outdoor recreation thing. So every time we felt like we had the model, you know, business would totally change and the needs of the campers changed. So we haven't quite hit that mark. And we notice it, especially now the kids are older, and it's like, wait a minute, our oldest is going off to college in a year and a bit. Like, that's not enough time.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if I'd call it a regret, because, you know, you're going to be doing something, right? And at least now we have, you know, we're kind of masters of our own domain, even though we have to be here a lot during the season. You know, we ski a lot in the wintertime with them, and we do get out, we recreate.
No, it's a good business because you got to raise your kids here too.
Yeah.
They've seen you do this. I mean, you're instilling, you know, they're teenagers, so they're going to rebel against you a little bit, but you're still instilling values in your kids about hard work, and they've seen you build this property. They've seen what it's done.
Oh, and during COVID, the last 2 years they worked here. So people are like, oh, how cute. And we're like, well, we didn't have a choice. So
Yeah.
so that they've actually put in, you know, feet on the ground.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, so this was a follow-up to that other video that basically everybody loved. So just wanted to say from them to you, thank you for the information you've shared with them. Been highly valuable, and hope you got value out of this. And we thought it'd be exciting to do a follow-up here since we're here, and it's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful April day here in Nevada
gorgeous.
City. So it's in-town campground. You're more than welcome to come stay. Just call ahead if you want to pick their brains. Make sure you schedule some time, buy them dinner or something like that, and make it worth it. So,
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for giving us a platform. We are always happy to encourage and support people who are also chasing their dreams.
Yeah, you know, reach out. We're always happy to talk.
cool.
So,
Thank you, and have a good
thanks,
day,
guys.
everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.